So this week, I came to the conclusion that I have to go completely sober from alcohol. Completely sober. Like, no little glass of wine here, tequila soda there. I'm talking completely sober. I'm talking, I go to a bar and order a sparkling water with lime. Sober. Possibly for the rest of my life. Now, I know what you're thinking. Wow, that's great. That's amazing. That's beautiful. In a lot of ways, I agree with you. However, this is not a choice that I made completely on my own. If it had been a choice that I had made completely on my own, I think I'd feel a little bit more excited about it. I was forced to make this decision, in some ways, against my own will. Let me explain. It all started in 2021. In the midst of COVID, Emma is drinking a lot of alcohol. Okay. Emma was drinking a lot of alcohol. I wouldn't say I was abusing it I think maybe a little bit, but I wouldn't say any more than the average college student. It's very common for kids, in their early 20s to drink a little bit too much, right? That's not out of the ordinary. Does it make it right? Does it make it healthy? Absolutely not. But it's to be expected in a way, right? I was drinking a lot of alcohol, particularly vodka. When 5 o'clock would hit, I was making a drink at best and taking shots at worst. COVID was rough. I think a lot of us were drinking. And so I was one of them. And I didn't see it as a problem at the time. I saw it as normal. And I still, in a way, see it as normal. But now, hindsight being 2020, I look at it and I'm like, just because everyone else is doing it doesn't mean it's okay for you to do it, right? Just because everybody else drinks a lot in their 20s, just because everybody else was drinking a lot because it was the pandemic and everybody was feeling nihilistic and confused, doesn't mean it's okay that I did it. Not everybody makes that choice. So I don't give myself a pass because everybody else was doing it. I still see that as problematic and unsustainable behavior. Anyway, I was drinking a lot, 2021. And at a certain point, I started to develop rashes and hives, particularly on my face whenever I drink. I actually wouldn't say whenever I drink because I was drinking kind of a lot and I wasn't getting rashes every single time. But I would say 75% of the time when I drink, I would develop hives. And it was really frustrating for me because I'd be drinking and then all of a sudden my face would start to feel really hot. And if I wasn't wearing makeup, you could very quickly start to see red patches all over my face and on my neck. And my face would swell up a little bit. And not only was it incredibly uncomfortable and hot, like my face just felt hot and swollen, but it looked kind of jarring. Like you'd look at my face and be like, oh, she's definitely not doing well. Like something's going on. And this would happen, after 2 drinks, right? And for a long time, I was perplexed by this because it wasn't happening every single time. I think if it had been happening every single time I would drink, I would have paid closer attention to it. But at the time, I wasn't in a particularly protective state of mind. Whereas now I'm very protective of myself. When something starts to go wrong or go awry, I immediately am checking in on it. If I feel like something's off in my body, I listen to it because I care about my well-being today. But there's been times in the past where I haven't. And in 2021, I wouldn't say I really cared about myself very much. So me getting hives was the least of my worries. I was like, I just want the hives to go away so I can keep having fun and have another tequila soda or have another vodka seltzer. That's what my priority was more than anything. I was like, I just want to keep drinking and having fun and escaping. And I want to look cute, and having hives all over your face and getting kind of puffy doesn't look very cute. Even when I was wearing makeup, you could still kind of tell that something was wrong with my face a little bit, but it would eventually pass. And yeah, it was very odd, but it wouldn't happen every time. So I was like, it can't be that big of a deal if it's not happening every time I drink. Like it was sort of Russian roulette. I didn't know when it was going to happen. And I think in retrospect, it's bizarre to me that I didn't pay more attention to that. Like when your body has a reaction like that over and over and over again, even if it's not every single time, that's still a sign that something's wrong, right? Something's not right. But because drinking was such a non-negotiable part of my life at that time, like it was a huge source of entertainment for me. It was how I spent time with those that I spent time with during that time. Like not my family, but, my friends, significant others. Like that was very much the center of what we were all doing together. Again, which is normal, right? Because we're at college age, partying and drinking is a big part of that, right? So it's not completely out of the ordinary. But again, that was my number one priority, was to maintain that as a part of my routine in life. So like to look at alcohol as potentially a problem for me physically, like health wise, it was like, I don't even care. Like it wasn't even something I was giving any attention to, because I was like, this is such a big part of my life right now. There's no way I'm going to stop. It was like weird, but it was all subconscious. I was like so in the routine of drinking a lot that it was like, yeah, like stopping or cutting back at the time, like didn't even cross my mind. Okay. And then that sort of continued 2021, 2022. Then around 2023, I stopped drinking vodka and I started drinking tequila. In addition to that, I stopped drinking as much. Okay. So my habits around drinking started to shift. I was still drinking relatively frequently, but it wasn't as much of a habit. It wasn't as big of a part of my life. And the rashes sort of stopped. I kind of stopped getting the rash. I would get them occasionally, but before it was like frequently. I would get a rash almost every time I drink. It was sort of unpredictable, but it was more frequent than it wasn't. When I cut back and started drinking tequila, they pretty much stopped completely. And alcohol slowly exited my life. Like it wasn't playing as big of a role. I wasn't relying on it as much for entertainment. I was starting to realize, hey, I kind of have relied on alcohol to be social for a while now. Maybe I should take off the training wheels and be social without it, like a big girl. And so, yeah, my relationship to alcohol improved, and it seemed I wasn't having any adverse reactions to it, and it was kind of great. And now, 2024, where we are today. I mean, we're at the end of 2024 when I'm recording this, but 2024. In the beginning of the year, I was still on my tequila soda grind. Like that's what I was drinking when I was going out, And then as the year progressed, I kind of stopped enjoying drinking hard liquor and I started getting into wine. And for majority of this year, I was drinking a lot of wine. Okay. I became a wine girl, and my desire to feel drunk or buzzed pretty much went out the window. And it was all about the experience of drinking the wine. I like the flavor of wine. I like the, different types of wine, and like being like, oh, I'm going to order this one. Oh, this one sucks. I'm going to get a different glass next time the waiter comes back. Like I loved the experience of wine, and it became more about the experience of like having wine with food, having wine at a wine bar, drinking it slowly, savoring it, not really getting drunk anymore, barely even feeling buzzed, but like enjoying the experience. I absolutely fell in love with wine. Everything about it, the culture around it, the experience of drinking it, the taste of it, the way it pairs with food, going into wine shops and picking out bottles of wine, splitting a bottle of wine with somebody. Like I just fell in love with wine. Okay. Like a complete fucking person entering their mid-20s. Okay. Like everyone does. I started to love wine. And I think ultimately it was a really healthy thing for me because it made my relationship with alcohol healthier than it's ever been. It made it about a beautiful experience, not about getting super drunk, not about, using it to help with the nerves. It was more about providing third spaces for me to hang out at, like a wine bar. It was about having something fun to order with my dinner at a restaurant. It was about the places that wine would take me, okay? The fun little wine shops in LA that I would find. It was about that. It wasn't about getting drunk, you know? And I really loved that about it. And I was like, wow, this is adulthood, you know? This is maturity. This is beauty. This is the beauty of, of wine. I get it now. I'm in. Then there's something about it, like, reminds me of coffee too. It's like, there's a ritual to it. It's just beautiful. Anyway, but this summer, during the heat of my wine craze, something kind of odd happened. I was on vacation in the south of France, and I was drinking a lot of wine on this trip. Not a lot of wine, but I was like having, a glass of wine in the afternoon and then having another glass of wine at dinner. Like, I was having wine. And one of the days on the trip, I have 2 glasses of wine, white wine, nothing out of the ordinary at all. And I get back to the hotel that night and I'm feeling incredibly nauseous. Okay. And I'm confused because I'm like, I had 2 glasses of wine. Like, this is not anything out of the ordinary. What is going on? And I'm in my hotel room and I'm feeling progressively more and more nauseous, but I'm becoming progressively more and more confused because I'm like, I've thrown up from alcohol before. I've drank too much before, for sure. That is not what's going on here at all. I had 2 glasses of wine and I ate a lot that day too. Because I know, obviously your sensitivity to alcohol goes up when you haven't eaten food. I had eaten so much that day. I had a lot of stuff in my stomach. Okay. So that wasn't a concern. It was not adding up to me why I was experiencing like horrific nausea after 2 glasses of wine. But yet I knew it felt like alcohol nausea, And so I was like, what? This is so weird. I ended up, sorry if this is TMI, sorry if you get grossed out by this. I did end up throwing up. And when I threw up, it was not just like a cute little throw up. This is so gross and TMI. I'm so sorry. If this is something that grosses you out, just skip ahead like 20 seconds. My body wanted the wine out of my body so badly that like I was really throwing up, like projectile. You know what I mean? Like, it was like with force. Like, my body was like, get this shit out. And was like pushing. When you're sick and you're throwing up, it's like hard to throw up kind of. It was like easy. Like, my body wanted this out, right? So I threw up. I felt so much better. I went to sleep that night and I woke up the next day and everything was fine. And I kind of just wrote it off as like a weird one-off sort of thing. I was like, all right, well, that was sort of weird, but whatever. Maybe I had food poisoning or maybe it was from the wine or I just didn't know. But it didn't happen again. And I continued to drink wine and it didn't happen again. So I was like, all right, we're good. Now, that was during the summer, okay? So that was like probably August, like July or August, right? Actually, it was July. That was July. Okay. Fast forward to the last month and a half, 2 months, okay? October, November of this year, the same year. The last few times that I've had wine, I have gotten horrible nausea, okay? And it's really weird because I'm not drinking a lot of wine. I'm having a glass or 2 max over the course of like 5-6 hours, over the course of like a dinner and then going out for 1 more glass of wine after. Okay. Extreme nausea, like overwhelming. And last weekend, the nausea got so bad that I threw up again after, the night that I threw up, I had 1 glass of wine with dinner and I ate a lot of dinner. So it was like, it should have been happy in my tummy, right? And then another half glass of wine. So not even a full 2 glasses. It was a glass and a half. Projectile vomiting into the toilet. Okay. And I was like, all right, something's going on. And then I sort of was paying attention to my body. Like, what else am I feeling? My heart was racing. My head was hurting. I was like, something's really wrong. I had a glass and a half of wine. Like, what's happening? But then I thought about it and I was like, the last few times I've drank, I've gotten extreme nausea, like something weird's going on. And then it clicked. Why does my own mother not drink alcohol? Because she has an alcohol intolerance. What is an alcohol intolerance, you may ask? Alcohol intolerance is caused by a genetic condition in which the body can't break down alcohol efficiently. The only way to prevent these uncomfortable reactions is to avoid alcohol. Now, what are the symptoms of alcohol intolerance? Facial redness, flushing, sound familiar? Red, itchy skin bumps, hives, sound familiar? Worsening of pre-existing asthma, I don't have asthma. Runny or stuffy nose, weirdly enough, that has happened to me many, many times after a night of drinking, just having like weirdly bad allergies. Low blood pressure, I'm not sure what that feels like, but I probably have experienced it. Nausea and vomiting, sound familiar? And diarrhea, doesn't sound familiar probably, but not to tell you too much, that has always been a part of the drinking experience for me. Oh, I might be experiencing alcohol intolerance. So I looked into it, and basically, it's interesting because apparently this is caused by inherited genetic traits. Having hay fever, allergies from the seasons and stuff, which I do have very badly, that is a risk factor. And according to the internet, having a mild intolerance to alcohol or something else than alcoholic beverages might not require a trip to the doctor. Simply just avoid alcohol, limit how much you drink, or avoid certain types of alcoholic beverages. So now I'm faced with a choice. There's definitely something going on with me and with alcohol. So now I'm faced with a really harsh reality, which is that alcohol simply does not agree with my body. Now, I could go to the doctor and get it checked out and potentially understand, like, if there's certain types of alcohol that impact me worse, or if I should just avoid everything altogether. Like, I could get some sort of confirmation from a doctor, or I could save myself an afternoon and just take this as a sign that maybe I shouldn't drink at all anymore.